All right, friends, welcome back to another episode of the Basics of Balance. I am here with a fellow coach that I am so excited to introduce to you guys. His name is Jason. He has a quite a lengthy resume, I will say, lots of experience. I'm so excited for our conversation today. And so let's just go ahead and start with who is Jason? So let's talk about Jason, what you kind of focus on with your clients, kind of how you got into this whole thing, and let's have a conversation.
All right. Thanks for having me. I appreciate I'm honored to be here and add value to your audience. Well, my lengthy resume can get quite lengthy. So how did I start? Well, after being bullied in middle school and trying to find some type of way to gain respect from my classmates, we started arm wrestling in school. But being very small and weak and skinny, I was always last. I'd always get my arm smashed on the table. And it was one day my dad, who was in the insurance industry, had used to hold trainings at the house. And at one of these trainings, I walked in and I saw a barbell set somewhere around. And one of his agents left the meeting and came across to me and signaled a bicep curl. He said, "Hey, if you do this, your arms will get stronger." I was like, "Cool, let's try that." So, with no rhyme or reason, I just started doing some arm curls after school. And about a couple months later, these boys were arm wrestling again. I was like, let's put this to the test and see if this actually works. When I got on the table, guys who were double my size were struggling to put me down. And in the back of my head, I'm like, yes, this stuff works, right? So they were like, dude, what are you doing? And I'm like, nothing, but that was just my little secret that I kept to myself. And from that day on, that moment lit a fire that would last a lifetime, right? And that's my first taste of strength training. Years later, I played soccer at a fairly high level, and then I moved to the US. Now, at that time, my studies were in the construction industry, in engineering and drafting. I worked, I did all the internships, and I came to the States hoping that I would just pick up where I left off. And that didn't happen. I had to redo everything from scratch. And I dedicated from my internship till about 23, it was like about 7 years of studies and experience and working with different companies. And I said, I'm not gonna do this over. And my wife at the time, she suggested, hey, why don't you become a personal trainer? You like to work out, you're athletic, just try it. And I did. And I twilighted here and there. And then my manager one day he said, hey, stick with me and I'll make you X amount of money. Within 1 year, I hit that goal. And then I became one of the top trainers in the club. Like we were killing it. We were putting down something like $250,000 in personal training revenue a month. That's in February. That's a short month. That's
A
four
lot.
weeks.
It's a lot.
So we were on top, and that just having that ability to help people was and given that honor, I would say somebody trusts you with their body and their diet to help people. It was life changing for me. And then I went to the city to work with a well-known club that came from the West Coast. They recruited us, and we stepped into more of a corporate model.
Mhm.
And I realized that I couldn't serve my clients like that anymore because we had to produce a certain amount of revenue.
Yeah.
And it was, basically you have to perform to keep your spot. And we
Yeah.
were getting top dollar, so we had to produce the numbers. And people at that time, I'm much older. I was 33, 34 years old. And my clients had different issues because I started attracting a different age clientele. I was like, I can't solve your sleep problems. Like, I have no idea how to do it, but I knew how to diet and how to put together stuff. But I can't solve your problems. if I have this much work to do on the other side. And at that point in time, I was like, hey, I I need a practice where I could actually sit and work with people at my pace
Mhm.
and still get paid what I'm worth and have a high value coaching practice.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, I started Body Image. And that's what led us, that's what we are today.
Yeah. Just like any other industry, you got to get your foot in the door. You know what I mean? And so obviously, the easiest way, at least from my understanding, is very similar to your experience. You work with a big box gym. Yes, okay, writing workout programs, but also like you mentioned, sleep. How is your recovery? Are you really getting the most out of this training if I'm, really trying to check the boxes that corporate wants me to check when really at the end of the day, there's so much more that goes into it, but I only have so much time. And so that kind of leads us down the line of logic of starting your own thing, which let me ask you, are you working more working for yourself or less working for yourself? But what do you enjoy more at the end of the day?
Well, that's interesting. I enjoy what I do so much, it doesn't even feel like work anymore.
Mhm.
Some days it feels like work, but most of the time it doesn't. Because the services that we provide really move the needle.
Mhm.
So the reward is so much bigger than just putting somebody through a tough workout.
Yeah.
So do I work more? Probably, but it really doesn't feel like it. It's a joy to
Yeah.
do what I'm doing.
Mindset. It's funny how much your mindset really allows you to like enjoy something or feel burnt out. You know what I mean? Like if you truly are bought into something and you feel like I get to do this versus I have to do this. You know what I mean? And I think
Correct.
a lot of that, I'd be curious to hear what you think, but as far as, our clients are concerned, right? Helping them realize, like when you first get started in your fitness journey, there's a lot of things that you feel like you have to do because you want results, right? You're working towards a goal. And so you have your blinders on and you are checking boxes, but eventually that motivation and infatuation fizzles out. You know what I mean? And eventually we are left with, okay, now the work begins. Once the initial infatuation wears off and you don't want to do these things anymore, now we are really seeing where the work is coming from, right? And at that crossroads, it really does become something that you have to do versus you get to do. And when you feel like you have to do it and you don't want to do it, you're going to find every opportunity to avoid it, right? I don't
Of
want to,
course.
so I'm not going to do it versus I choose to do it. I get to do it because I feel so much better when I do it compared to when I don't. You're then going to find every opportunity to do it versus not do it. So it's interesting how much of coaching is really psychological versus let me tell you what to do and you do it and we move on with our day. Like I don't think a lot of people realize like there's more about coaching that has to do with that psychological component than it is about the logistics. What do you think about that?
Yeah, 100%. The destination is the journey.
Hmm.
Because when you get to the point where you think you hit your goal, there's nothing beyond that. So enjoying the destination, as we can't wait to feel great until we get to our goal because that's gonna lead to the abandonment of the whole mission to begin with.
Yeah.
Right? So the journey is the destination. When it comes to mindset, when I show my coaching model, right? My coaching revolves around four pillars: mindset, exercise, nutrition, lifestyle. And I always show it as a table with four legs. But when I examined it, and I was like, this doesn't make sense. The table more looks like a circular top with a single pedestal.
Uh-huh.
And the supporting base is just nutrition and the exercise and all the sexy stuff. But that main pillar, that's the mindset pillar,
Hmm.
because that holds up the entire foundation. Everything else is just the supporting cast,
Hmm.
right? Um, and it's like if you were to take if you were changing water in, let's say, a fish tank, you would have to take out the dirty water and put clean water in. If you just add clean water to that dirty water, you just get more dirty water. And I believe that a lot of people have this faulty software running on their operating system. And as coaches, we need to help them identify those bad programs because it doesn't matter, the tactics or the supplements or the peptides or whatever fancy training program or recovery program you could layer on top of that faulty programming, it will always fail. If you believe you can or you believe you can't, you are absolutely right.
Yeah.
So we need to rewire, well, begin to rewire that person, help them identify their beliefs, because what they believe is what they are going to be living. So we need to dig a little deeper and understand where to get that belief system from. And that's the mental work that we do as coaches, little by little.
I think it's so funny because when we had talked, a few weeks ago or whatever, we had that conversation about how much of coaching is mental, and how, we joke sometimes, or at least I said I joke sometimes with my clients, especially for the nutrition side of things, right? Like if dealing with training is one thing, but dealing with nutrition is a whole nother beast. And it's so funny how I joke when I say sometimes it feels like therapy. Obviously, I'm not a therapist, but so much of what we work through, especially as it relates to like behavior change and kind of what you're talking about, like creating a strong, healthy mindset. If somebody doesn't believe they can, it's going to be really hard to overcome obstacles compared to somebody who is like, I don't know if I can't, but let's see what happens when I try. You know what I mean? So it's
Right.
so much about that psychological piece almost in a therapy setting where it's like, okay, let's understand why you believe you can't do it. Let's see what happens if you try it and you fail and you realize, oh, the world didn't end, things like that. And it's getting people to understand we get used to what we allow ourselves to get used to, and our perception of what's hard matters, right? And so if we shy away from a challenge because we feel like we can't do it, well, we're stunting our progress, right? Rather than leaning into the challenge and just seeing what you're capable of. What if you succeed? What if you go into a situation like going to dinner, for example? And you tell yourself, this is going to be so hard to stay on top of my nutrition. And oh my gosh, I'm worried about it. Versus walking in there with a plan, saying, I feel confident about how I'm going to handle this meal because I have a structure, I have a plan, I've worked with my coach. One is going to produce confidence, and one is going to make you feel so anxious and kind of stunt you before you even walk into that restaurant. You know what I mean? So a lot of, the success or quote unquote failure, because I don't believe in
Hmm.
failure, but a lot of the success or failure is truly mental. It's not a matter of pass, fail, right, wrong, good, bad. It's a matter of, are you trying? Are you putting in that effort? Because if you're putting in that effort, you're growing your perception of what's hard inherently speaking. And that's where
Oh
we
yeah.
want you to be. We want you to try to find solutions versus just shy away and lean away from a challenge?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like what's the worst could happen? If the tactics don't work and you just adjust tactics and you keep moving.
Hmm.
There's no big deal with that. The thing is that when somebody is optimistic, the part of the brain that lights up, the prefrontal cortex, pushes them
Hmm.
to find solutions when they hit bumps in the road. When somebody is pessimistic, it lights up the amygdala. That's the fear center of the brain.
Hmm.
So now they enter everything with like, I'm not sure if this is going to work. And research shows that somebody in a positive mindset becomes automatically 33% smarter than somebody who has a negative mindset.
Sure.
So perception is everything. And what could, as you said, as you highlighted before, your plan helps to just ease that state of mind. When you go into that restaurant or that family gathering or that party with a plan, you say, "Hey, I could have this, I could have this, I could have that."
Mhm.
Then it just removes all the fear and anxiety. You just go for it.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of times too, like when you hear, well, I'm a type A person, so when I hear planning, I'm like, okay, this is great. But a lot of people, when they hear the word planning and structure, they think limitation, right? But like really at the end of the day, there is freedom in planning because you know your boundaries, right? It's the same idea of in my experience, it's a lot easier to diet to a certain degree because you have boundaries. The parameters that you're working within versus somebody who is no longer dieting and who is maybe entering in like a maintenance frame, right? Where the lines of your boundaries are a little bit more blurred. There's more room open to interpretation. You still want to have some kind of focus and some kind of effort, but not as much effort, right? Like the dial of discipline is being turned up when you're in a diet versus being turned down when you're in maintenance. You're still putting forth some effort. It's just not as much. And I think that that concept is really hard for people to understand. And it's the same idea of when you are in a situation where you are learning to stay in control of your food choices, right? And this is something that's maybe foreign to you. And you have something that you've maybe put on a pedestal. And let's just say it's chocolate, right? And you every time you're around chocolate, you tell yourself, "Oh, I want that, but I can't have it. Oh, I want that, but it's bad." Every single time you mentally restrict yourself from having that, all you're doing is making yourself hyper focus and hyper fixate on that thing you said you couldn't have. Versus if you allow yourself, and I know this might sound woo woo to many people, but if you allow yourself, if you give yourself permission to have some chocolate, over time, you're going to realize I can have that whenever I want to. And as a result, you're going to be in more control when you're in front of that food because you're not restricting yourself. So, a lot of these coaching principles are very much rooted in your mind. It's not logistical as much as tell me why you gave in. I want to know why that is. I'm not judging you why you gave in, but like you got to be vulnerable with your coach to get somewhere. You know what I mean?
Oh, definitely. And that's part of the reward and salient system of the brain. And the one of the hubs in that is the nucleus accumbens, right? It's you when you tell someone that they can't have it, they crave it even more, right? And the brain, the brain just tags that thing that you said, hey, let's say you can't have chocolate. It tags that chocolate as becoming more valuable. And that's why cravings are
Right.
so hard to beat. So what I do is I said, hey, if let's say I want to remove bread from breakfast,
Mhm.
I'd say let's substitute bread for some veggies for this week, and let's see what happens. That does two things. Well, one, they don't feel like they're being deprived, and it's a finite timeline.
Yeah.
So when you hear substitutions, like, okay, I'm gonna get something in place, and it's a week, I could do that for a week,
Mhm.
and that's how I get around those hard lines of saying,
Yeah.
hey, you can't have that. One of the tricks that I use.
But you're also, in that line of logic, I love that strategy. In that line of logic, you are proving to yourself that you can go without bread for a week. And also, maybe even recognizing like the difference in how you feel. Like, bread is not wrong, right? I eat bread multiple times a day. However, when somebody is only used to hyper palatable foods that are far away from maybe like whole foods based, like fruits and veggies, it's really hard. It's really hard to take that initial jump to be like, whoa, I'm removing this and I'm replacing it with veggies. Like, how boring is that? But I think that experience and that experiment kind of proves to yourself, oh, wow, I just did something that I think I thought I could never do and I survived to tell the tale. And also, I have a positive experience as a result. I miss my bread. I'm going to have my bread this week, but I can do it. And that's the point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
That's
That
great.
you're flexing that willpower muscle. The part of the brain that lights up is the anterior midcingulate cortex. It's like your bicep when you're doing a curl. Every time you flex that willpower muscle, it lights up and it gets stronger and it gets
Mhm.
stronger. And what I try to tie in my switches with the bread for the veggies. If I know if that fix is related to something that this person is experiencing, let's say they get brain fog or they get cravings, once we reevaluate the fix, and I'm like, how do you feel? Like, well, I didn't feel this, I didn't feel that. Then it's not me telling them, they have that internal aha moment. So now
Right.
it increases their buy-in to why we're doing
Mhm.
what we're doing. And it's easier for them to make that a habit. Yeah, they might slip here and there because it's new and they're still flexing that muscle, but then they can actually feel the change and not just listen to what I'm saying.
Right. It's
Mhm.
always going to mean so much more when you have your own experience to
Correct.
fall back on versus, oh, I'm eating something because I'm told it's good for me. Like, that's not a deep enough reason to overcome not wanting to. You know what I mean?
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
you need those experiences. I mean, think about it this way. If you have children, right? Or
Yes.
a child, imagine if, when your son was a toddler and you told them, don't touch the stove, it's hot. What's going to happen? All they're going to want to do is touch the
Touch this.
stove. So if
Correct.
you tell yourself when you're an adult, I can't have this, it's going to create the exact same response. But now we are hyper fixating on that food, and that's when we overindulge on those foods. That's when we lose
Correct.
control, is because we said we couldn't have it, and now that's all we want. So, I think it's helpful, maybe even for just people to hear, when your coach asks you to do something, there's a deeper reason why, and it's not necessarily as face value as you might seem. And we understand that it might make you feel a little anxious because you've
Yeah.
historically, given in and overindulged, and we get it. We get it. But we also, at the same time, we need your trust at the same time. Like a good coach-client relationship, it's a two-way street. There is a certain level of trust that is, I'm scared to do what you're asking me to do, but I trust you, and so I'm willing to do it for the sake of the experiment, if you will.
Yeah. And that takes time to build. That
Absolutely.
takes time to build because, even let's say from a mechanical perspective, if we're putting a heavy bar on your back, trying to do a back squat or trying to do a
Mhm.
deadlift, most people are scared of getting hurt. But you're there, you're with them. They've done it with their body weight, they've done it with lighter weights. You just execute what you've done with 10 pounds, with 200, and you would be fine.
Yeah.
But it comes from repetition.
Hmm. Absolutely. I have a week in my programming. I'm sure you have something similar where I call it drop set week. And it's basically you remove a set of every single exercise with the intention of making up for the loss of weight lifted in your remaining sets. Okay. And so many different reasons for it, right? However, one of the biggest and most valuable reason for my clients is they experience what it feels like to push themselves. So their perception of what's hard grows, right? Their perspective on what they're able to handle grows, and they obviously close the gap of thinking they're lifting heavy enough, and no, I know I'm lifting heavy
Heavy
enough, right?
enough. Yeah.
And so all of that to say, it's that experience, that time and that repetition and experiencing, oh, I'm scared to lift heavier, but hey, I lifted heavier and I didn't get hurt. That builds your confidence, and it's just like any other muscle. Confidence grows with time and repetition. Self-control grows with time and repetition. Every single time you make a choice in the same direction, you're creating that new neural pathway, and it's going to make it easier for you to make that choice in the future. Not easy, because nothing necessarily is easy. You still have to make that decision, but at the end of the day, it's easier. It's less foreign. Um, I would love to hear, because I think either I cut you off or you left out the part of your journey about your bodybuilding. So you started, from grassroots into strength training. You kind of worked your way into bodybuilding, which is so much more of a higher level, focused discipline as far as fitness is concerned. So I would love to hear from you. You're working with, everyday people right now, but you also have so much experience in the bodybuilding world. And I do believe that those two, even though they are polar opposite, as far as like dial of discipline is concerned, what similarities with those two polar opposite demographics do you see rings true across the board? So, like, what kind of very basic, simple things um, are true with both of those levels of discipline?
There's two differences. It's very simple. Bodybuilding is the intensity and the timeline. High intensity, shortened timeline. Whether it's 90 days, 120 days to step on stage for a competition. For regular people, you dial down the intensity. and you increase the timeline.
Hmm.
That's the difference with that. The tools are exactly the same. You still got to strength train. You still got to do cardio. You still got to plan your meals. You still got to rest, recover, have a well-written training program. The tools are exactly the same. The difference is intensity and timeline. And that's how I that's how I started really my through my bodybuilding experience. That's how I started becoming very effective as a trainer and a coach. I was like, how can I use what I did for myself and this population? Because I started training tons of fitness and bikini competitors after. What did I use to make them successful that I could use to make this population successful? Wasn't anything different. Intensity and timeline. I want my people at a constant 7. If you're at a constant 7, we're within range when your 60th birthday is coming up or your 40th birthday is coming up. We're at third base. We're just like two bases away from the home plate. It's like when those old school bodybuilders off season, let's say their stage weight was 220, they were 230 in the off season, 235. Now these guys are like 300 trying to get on to 245. And that's what I did when I was competing. I was always taking down a lot of weight to step on stage. And now I just stay within range, just outside the ballpark. So the tools are the same, intensity, again, and timeline. That's your difference.
And I think that that is something that a lot of people fail to realize is a sustainable, healthy lifestyle. Not a lot changes from a disciplined frame of mind, like a cut, right? You're dieting, you're deficit, you're dialed in to every day. That is what makes it sustainable. So you're not necessarily overhauling your life, as much as you're tweaking little tiny things. The intensity you're taking up a notch, right? Versus taking things down a notch. I know that a lot of times the transition from, dieting, right, that phase in your journey to maintenance, a different phase of your journey, a lot of times people feel like nothing is going on. They get bored. They get so used to seeing the scale go down. They get so used to seeing them, they're defined and they're chiseled and that feels good to see and whatnot. And they don't have those same points of reference in like a maintenance frame of mind. And so their headspace wants to jump right back into a cut because that dopamine, they're craving that dopamine hit, right? And I think that that is so important to understand. Nothing necessarily needs to change. Your meals don't need to change. You can eat more of them in a maintenance or a surplus and less of them in a deficit, but nothing needs to change necessarily. Your workouts, strength training is the foundation in a deficit. Strength training needs to be a foundation in maintenance, and I think a lot of times people are looking for things to keep them interested and bought in. But at the end of the day, if we're talking about living a sustainable, healthy lifestyle for the rest of our life, there is no end date. We keep doing the same things over and over again, regardless of what goal you're doing. We just increase intensity or decrease intensity depending on that. You work with a lot of data as far as like biofeedback, right? In that data frame of mind, when you're working with somebody who is dieting versus who is maybe in maintenance or like a surplus, are you able to differentiate biofeedback as far as that's concerned?
That could be a question for like a half. That could be a long answer. So we do two things here. Well, we do a lot of things, but if you're looking at blood work, you'll see the difference with serum blood work in terms of like glucose, A1C, triglycerides, cholesterol, CRP, C-reactive protein, interleukin 6, those are inflammatory markers. But what we do, and just to tie back into your previous question, the previous discussion about dieting and maintenance versus going after a goal, we try to morph or tie the aesthetics into the longevity pathway because Fat loss is just the entry point. Metabolic health is just the entry point to longevity. There are the things that you need to check along the way to ensure that you live in this healthy lifestyle. Because you could look a certain way and go under the hood and then discover that things are not where it's supposed to be. I've seen that, right? And in terms of biofeedback, if someone is not, let's say, just started a journey in terms of, let's say, they're drinking or they're eating late or they just want to start getting themselves back. They want to get themselves healthier. I don't look for biofeedback from that person because there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that we need to get first before we actually get deep data.
Mm.
So to to kind of answer your question, I could share like a quick case study,
Yeah,
right?
please.
So about 4 years ago, I'll just call her Jay, walked into the facility, and like with everybody, she wanted to lose some weight. She was like a buck 80, buck 82, 5'6". And you know that when people are trying to lose weight, the first thing they think that they need is more exercise. It's a great way to start, but it's not the only thing that you need because mechanical solutions can't only solve metabolic problems. We need to do a full circle on that. So she worked with us. She started doing well. And then we moved her up into coaching. And she coached with us for about 2 years. Fast forward, she lost just over 30 pounds. She looks much stronger. Like I wouldn't grab her back on the sidewalk. Like I know I'm gonna get some, right? She's deadlifting way above her body
Goals.
weight, right? And she just got her first pull-up. So at that point in time, I said, hey, you're ready for the next step. And then we did some biofeedback in terms of biological age versus chronological age. And she is 64. Her biological age is 49.
Wow.
And that's without any advanced stuff. That's just laying down the foundations that you teach your client. You teach your clients sleep, eat, recover, rest, supplement, do this, get some sunlight, walk on the grass, drink your water, whatever it is you build in to help support your people. That's what we did with her, cleaned up her guts, did some stress reduction techniques, helped her sleep better. And that moved the needle so much. And I often joke with her, I said, hey, you're gonna have to start looking for a new husband. Because she has the of a 49-year-old woman. And that just goes to show how important the fundamentals are.
Yeah.
But when I looked at her data at that point in time, I saw that she had risk for heart issues.
Okay.
So what I did was, I put on a couple peptides to help reduce her oxidative stress. And that's it.
Yeah.
There's nothing fancy about it because she had this solid foundation.
Mhm.
So in terms of biofeedback, when somebody comes in and they are not doing the things, I could simply just ask for some blood work and
Yeah.
see where they're at, and then start making small changes. But there's a lot of low-hanging fruit that we miss, and we tend to try to go for the multipliers. Let's just nail the basics first.
No,
Did that answer your question?
yeah, no, definitely. You can't replace the basics. I think, there are so many times we are looking at
Right.
extreme measures. And again, like we look at, overhauling our life and going from not working out ever to like, hey, I'm waking up at 5 a.m. every single day and I'm gonna, you know what I mean? And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Things really don't have to be as extreme as we think they have to be, and arguably because we see so much information coming at us telling us this is the next thing and the next thing, and the thing is that really at the end of the day you don't need the next thing because you already have the things that we are just don't want to do because we don't think that they move the needle, and at the end of the day that is what moves the needle.
Right.
Vibration plates are not going to move the needle, you know what I mean? Strength training will move the needle.
Correct.
Things like that. You can't Even when you're trying to build muscle, okay, if you are not focused on sleep, it's not happening, period. You know what I mean? So it's like these things that you don't want to prioritize and focus on, we have to. We don't have a choice. I
And
do want to circle back to what you said because it is so common, and I see this every single day on Instagram, on Threads. I talk to, my goodness gracious, my family and my friends, and it's, you working out can enhance your nutritional choices, which will drive your physical results. Okay. But working out is not the main lever that we pull when you are trying to lose weight. That I think is so misunderstood. I'm spending so much time in the gym. I'm doing all this cardio. Why am I not seeing changes? All of these things. And it's like, I think that there's such a fundamental disconnect in how we understand what actually moves the needle, what lever to pull. And unfortunately, working out, obviously it's great for many, many reasons, but the main source and the main reason why we work out is not to look a different way. That is driven by our nutritional choices. And that's the hardest part. And that might not be something that people want to accept because it's harder. You know what I mean? It's easier to spend an hour in the gym and not think about what you're eating throughout the rest of the day,
oh yeah, definitely.
or think you're doing it right, and all of these
Yeah.
things, right? But I think it's one of those things where we have so much research that shows there are so many other reasons that we exercise and we move our body. And even if you never wanted to lose 1 pound, you still need to be exercising regularly. But that's not the reason that you exercise, is to look a different way. That's your nutritional changes. And so, obviously you did bodybuilding. You are no longer in bodybuilding. So, I'm curious to kind of hear your experience as it relates to that. What has changed? I'd be curious to hear.
Of course. And when you're a competitor, the only thing that matters is the date that you need to step on stage.
Right.
That's it. Everything else
Right.
just fades into the background.
Hmm.
Now you have kids and you have a partner and you have a business and you got family and you got clients. Like all those things compete for your
Hmm.
attention.
Yeah.
So now you have to learn how to divvy up the attention so that no arena suffers. Each
Well,
aspect of your life maintains at a certain level.
sure, sure. And I think that's, that's so important what you just said. Fitness is a component of your life. It's not supposed to be your life. Fitness is supposed to enhance your life. It's supposed to improve your quality of life. It's supposed to give you energy. It's supposed to, allow you to be strong enough to do whatever you want to do. And I wonder if you can do it, but know you can do it, right? You're fast enough that you can run after your kids and all of these things, right? But you only have so much capacity in your day, in your brain, right? And if you let's talk about a pint glass, or here, my big water jug, okay? This only has as much capacity as it has, all right? If we fill it up 3/4 of the way of water, right? We're only going to have a quarter left. Water is our obligations, okay? Water is our responsibilities that we don't have a choice, we have to do. That only leaves us with a quarter capacity of things that we want to do. That means thinking about what you're eating. That means meal prepping. That means working out. That means insert activity here, right? Health and fitness or otherwise. You
Yeah.
only have that much. And if you get into phases or seasons of your life where there is even less capacity for that health and that fitness journey, it's not that we don't do anything, it's that we do what we can within that capacity, right? And so there might be seasons of your life where you have way more capacity for health and your fitness. However, at the end of the day, you're ebbing and flowing. There's that dial of discipline again. If you don't have capacity to do all of the things, don't do nothing, what can you do? Turn down the dial while also putting forth effort at the same time. And that's how you keep moving forward, because nobody expects you to show up for yourself 100% of the time every single day. That's not sustainable. But 100% might mean something different in one phase of your life compared to another phase of your life. And if you gave effort, then hey, you gave that 100%. That's something to be proud of, But the perfectionist mentality, the all or the nothing mentality stops so many people from realizing that and feeling defeated that they can't show up the same way that they showed up when they were in college, when they didn't have kids and they didn't have a full-time job and they didn't own
Yeah,
a house. And it's like, that's not even fair to ask of you. It's not fair.
yeah,
You're holding yourself to a standard that's just unattainable. And no
yeah,
wonder why you feel defeated. It doesn't have to be that difficult. It's a part of your life, but it's not supposed to be your life, you know?
yeah. And I think most people get mistaken with what 100% means.
Hmm.
If you have if you have, let's say in that cup you had some strawberries and you had some blueberries and then you had some raspberries, like, each will take up a different amount of space.
Totally.
So you give 100% of the space that you have,
Hmm.
right? And that's still 100%. But you're right, like seasons, this is ebb and flow. And well, in life, nature shows us there are seasons. So in your life, they are gonna have seasons too. They're gonna have projects that you're gonna have to work on a little later.
Right.
You might have a sick kid or a sick parent that you have to take care of. And this is where, again, the all or nothing mindset usually fails. And this is where you just need to take a deep breath and do what you can. And as coaches, we help people navigate that. And this is why I believe coaching is so very valuable,
Mhm.
because those are the times people give up. They're like, oh, well, I started and I fell off, and I started and I fell off. I heard that conversation yesterday with a new client and one of my trainers. He told him about 5 times why he fell off in the last 2 years. And after listening to it, I told my trainer, I said, hey, we need to start working on giving him something that's more sustainable, stuff that he could do when he gets busy. Because most people feel that they want to get in shape because they have time. Well, you're not always going to have time. So the first thing you're going to drop is your fitness. The best time to start to get in shape is when everything is on top of you. So when some of that burden lets off, as you said before, you have more time, more capacity to dedicate towards your journey.
Yeah.
100% looks different.
Yeah. I would agree. I would agree for sure. I mean, again, I kind of just think that that goes back to, what we talked about initially. It's the whole mindset thing, and it's one of those things where if you are working with a coach, your coach wants to know. Your coach wants to know what you're struggling with so we can help you. We don't expect you to have all of the answers. That's why you have hired us. But at the end of the day, it does require that honest conversation and saying, I fell off track, for us to say, you didn't fall off track. And this is why I'm telling you didn't fall off track. If you look at every single opportunity, like every weekend, for example, to say, I deserve this, I'm gonna eat like this because I was eating so dialed in over the week. Okay, well, we are creating a situation where you are basically choosing to fall off track. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, we are creating a
yeah,
situation where you are choosing the outcome. And listen, the thing is that at the end of the day, if that's your choice, like, you're an adult, you're in the driver's seat of your journey. I'm only here to help guide you and show you, what's possible and support you and encourage you and all of these things. But if you straight up come to me and say, I know I could have made a better choice, I chose to not because I was so tired, because it was such a stressful and busy week, and I just needed to turn my brain off and X, Y, and Z. Okay, well, you thought about it. That wasn't just like a mindless decision, and let's work through that so we can improve on that in the future. But like, that doesn't sound like it was just well, I forgot to plan and then I didn't do this and then the day got away from me. And it's like, those are two very different things. One is making an active decision and one is making a passive decision. One is being in the driver's seat of your journey and one is letting life choose for you. And one is going to make you feel guilty and one is going to keep you in control and make you feel empowered. So those are not the same thing. So
correct.
again, context matters. The
Yeah,
more open and vulnerable you can be with your coach, the more we're able to have those kinds of conversations that
yeah,
talk you off the ledge.
yeah, definitely. And not making a decision is a decision.
It is a decision.
It's a
It is a
decision.
decision.
It's a decision to stay the same. It's a
Yep,
decision to stay stuck. Got to make a decision. Choose.
absolutely. Well, and I think a lot of times too, some people they really truly need a deep enough reason as to why. Okay. They need a deeper reason than just physical changes. It might be enough to get you started. Like you said, fat loss is the entrance, right? It's the entryway, but it's not going to be a big enough reason to keep going, especially when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't want to, especially when everybody else is staying out for one more drink, but you have goals, right? You're the boring
Yeah,
one. You're the one that always has something. It's like, you need a deeper reason as to why. And it's
yeah,
those experiences, like we talked about earlier, that are your anchors that become your reason why. Okay. I might
yeah,
want to stay out and have another drink with my friends, but I know that I'm going to wake up at the same time every single day. And I can't have my Monday starting with me not being able to give my clients 100%. And so, therefore, I'm choosing to say no to that drink. It's not that I don't want to, it's that you have that experience to ground you to help you make that decision. And it's not
yeah.
coming from a place of I have to as much as no, I don't want to feel that way tomorrow, so I'm choosing to. There's a difference.
Yeah, it's funny that you said the word boring, right? Like earlier on in the year, I think it was February, we family went out. And I'm Catholic.
Mhm.
So during the Lenten period, I remove a couple of things. Alcohol is one.
Uh-huh.
So they're outside and they drink. I was like, yeah, take a drink. I was like, no. He's like, you're so boring. I'm like, I was like, listen, man, like if 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 I allow you to take my life points, right? Let's say fast forward, I'm on my deathbed. I can't get any back from you.
Mhm.
So I'm not allowing you to take it right now. You have to stand guard at your mind, stand guard at what you eat. Like this is you,
Mhm.
right? I'm not gonna allow you to ruin my health, right? And I'm saying allow you, at the end of the day, it's our decision, but I'm not gonna give
Oh,
in to
sure.
peer pressure.
You're
We
influenced, though. I mean,
correct,
we all
correct.
are. Yeah.
You're correct. And part whenever I deliver a coaching program, that's like at the top of the list of that's like that's like a memo on the top. That's like one of the most important things I put. It's like you're gonna feel pressure from your family, from your friends. You might feel even alienated by some of the choices that you're gonna make. I said, but you will get more respect from having a hard line, from just trying to fit in and just be one of the bunch. I said, this is your journey.
Mhm.
So once you establish that line and that boundary, and you're not going back and forth, people eventually say, you know what, this is what you stand for. And it becomes easier. At first, it's a bit awkward, but it becomes easier. I remember going to Easter dinner, Easter lunch, and eating tilapia and salad while everybody's eating mac and cheese and having cake. And I'm like, but that's a hard line. Everybody respects that. Now, when they want to get a diet plan or a training plan or whatever, guess who they come to? They come to me because they're seeing that I lead from the front. And that's very, very important. You can't just, I don't want you to do as I say. I want you to do as I do. And that just reinforces your position and your authority and your trust as a coach. Very important to lead from the front.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, there is a level of you have to be willing to go against the grain in anybody's journey. And I think it feels very there's a lot of shock value initially, right? At the beginning, because it's so new to you. You know what I mean? You're
Yeah.
not used to taking criticism or, whatever the case is. Number one, you don't have to announce what you're doing to everybody. So if you're going out and you're choosing to not drink, not you, but people in general, you're allowed to go to the bar and ask for a soda water or, a soda or whatever, and come back to the table with a glass and not announce, hey, I'm not drinking. Like you're allowed to do that. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, of
you're
course.
allowed to order whatever you want and to not also explain to people why you are ordering what you want. You're allowed to, when somebody gives you, grief for whatever reason, oh, you're eating this again, just simply say, yep, this is how I feel my best, and not give in to, you know what I mean? Like you're allowed to go against the grain while also not furthering that discomfort that we initially feel before we are so comfortable in this lifestyle that it's just something that we do and we don't care who says what. I don't care if you think that I'm boring.
Right.
I
And
went
if
on
you,
vacation last week with my in-laws for a week, and I think I posted a picture of my breakfast, and it was overnight oats with some yogurt, right? Packed with, fiber and, all of the things that we need, yada, yada, yada. And I posted it, and somebody, one of my friends, probably listening, so yes, I'm talking about you, but one of my friends commented, and they were like, that's not breakfast on vacation. And it's like, well, number one, there's that YOLO mentality. Just because I'm on vacation means, ooh, I get to eat whatever I want and brunch and all of these things. But also, number two, yeah, because guess what? I'm going to have energy for the day. I'm not going to feel like crap and I'm going to want to go do things. And so
of
you
course,
can call me boring, but you don't get to live in my body and tell me that my choice that I'm making for myself is wrong. You know what I mean? And I think
ah,
that takes time, right? Like that takes skin in the game and that takes those experiences and, things like that. But that also takes time and repetition, changing your thought process, changing your choices and being more willing to make them, and not necessarily worrying about what people's criticism is saying because it's just something you do. It's not
of
something that
course.
it's pulling teeth anymore as much as it's just who you are.
Yes, it's okay. It's cool. And when people respect you, they're like, oh, this is all you eat. And so when they invite you to parties, guess what? You see some of what you eat at the parties. You're like, huh, you're actually getting it, right? And then, unknowingly, you start changing people's behavior around you. How many parties or tables have you sat to eat at that people would normally eat way more or have more dessert, and they know that you're into your health and your fitness, and they start holding back. They're like,
Yeah.
huh, right? You put that pressure on them without actually putting that pressure on them. So you return the favor that you return that pressure that they gave you initially. And they start respecting your boundaries.
Well, it's a ripple effect. That's one of my favorite things when a client comes to me and says, my father came in town and, we went on walks every single day. And, he's been home for a week and he told me that he's been walking every day because he so much enjoyed the walks that he was on with me. I went out to dinner with somebody and they came up to me and they said, you'd be so proud of me. I've been starting to, include more protein in my diet and I've been doing this and X, Y, and Z. It's like that's the ripple effect. You're influencing people whether we know it or not. We are 100% emulating the people that we surround ourselves with. And so that's, the reason why it's really important to surround yourself with like-minded people. But we create those ripple effects. And I love when those positive choices start, rubbing off on other people in my client's life and my life, because it's like, I'm not even trying to help you as much as like, I'm so proud of you for just like seeing how these choices have improved, my quality of life or, my client's quality of life. And they are just putting it into practice. Like, that's so cool to me?
It is, it is. Earlier on, when I just started training, I was training this young lady and she just couldn't do some push-ups.
Mhm.
She was a great runner, she was fast, just couldn't do push-ups. So we started doing push-ups. And then one day, her dad, now she's a young woman, she's a teacher. Her dad walks into the health club and he's like, I want to see who is this Jason guy. He's like, listen, man, you have my daughter around the dinner table after between her meals, she's getting on the floor and doing push-ups. I said to him, and he's like, this is a big Italian dude, right? I said, hold up, hold up. I said, I never gave her that instruction to do that. He's like, yeah, he said, but I'm interested to see what you do. And he became a client of mine after.
It's amazing.
It's,
Like that's awesome. And like that girl was probably just wanting to show like because she's so proud of what she's able to do, and in
yeah,
that, look at that. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. It's so funny though.
Well, Jason, this has been great. I mean, we could talk about this stuff all day long. It's so great to, have a conversation with a fellow coach who just gets it. So I appreciate your time. I hope those of you who are listening, I hope this is a helpful resource. I hope this also kind of showed just a different side of coaching that you might have not seen. You know what I mean? Obviously, we can talk about, basics in health and, how to reach your goals and stuff like that, but your coach should have your best interest in mind. And we're not expecting you to be perfect, and we get it. We have our own journey. We were where you were, relatively speaking. So I hope that this is helpful. But I would love to kind of just ask Jason, how can people get in contact with you? How can they work with you? Who are the clientele that you typically work with? Tell us a little bit about how to get in contact with you.
Well, you could you could reach in touch. You get in touch, Instagram, J Nelson, JAYNELSON 0580. And you could go to bodyimage.health. We serve adults over 40. If you're in the New York, Williston Park area, we have a personal training facility. Other than that, we coach online. We specialize in fat loss and we do offer peptide and HRT therapies as well. We will get you in, get a proper assessment, and take it from there. Our goal is to help you build a body that could support the lifestyle that you work so hard to build.
Well, I appreciate you taking time out of your day. But thank you so much for the conversation. All
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate
right,
it.
have a good day.
Goodbye.